Come on.
Hey everybody, welcome to a very special episode of the Check Engine Podcast. It's the only podcast produced by three two-time winners of IMSA's Spirit of the Race Award. We're hosted on Anchor.fm and we're streamed worldwide on all the platforms that you use to listen to your favorites. Why is this episode special? It's because it is the 100th episode of the Check Engine Podcast. Andrew, Tristan, congratulations, we made it.
Hell yeah, we did.
We're here.
And you know what? We made it just in time because I discovered something while I was working on, you might as well let the cat out of the bag now, on a website redesign. I discovered that in celebration of our 100th episode, another podcast from Mexico has been created called the Check Engine Podcast Mexico. No affiliation, no idea who these guys are. They are a group of Mexican auto enthusiasts, according to what I think I read, because I don't actually read Spanish. They have a passion for cars. So I don't know. I actually know some people who do speak Spanish. Maybe I'll try to contact them somehow. But anyways, they started up June 3rd, 2020, just in time for us to celebrate our 100th episode, which is kind of funny.
CEP is going international without us even knowing about it. How about that?
That's right.
Without our knowledge.
Damn it, we should have trademarked this before. I guess it wouldn't work in Mexico. Our trademark wouldn't be...
Well, that's kind of the other thing. But anyways, I thought that was kind of fun. I think I would like to try to reach out to these guys. So let's see.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. That's pretty cool, actually.
I know.
You guys... Are either of you surprised that we made it to 100 episodes? Like that we made it this far?
Maybe.
The most committal answer.
That's it, just maybe. Well, because 100 episodes is a bit. It is a milestone for I guess there's two tracks you can take in this. The aw shucks numbers are arbitrary thing, or I would bet there's some statistic out there that says, whatever percent of podcasts actually make it to 100 episodes, blah, blah, blah. But I think it's illustrative of the role that this has taken in our personal lives. Listen, we don't have the biggest audience. We don't have clout. We don't have fame. But I think that personally, this is more critical to my life now than it has been at any other time in the previous 99 episodes. It's important to me.
Yeah, I would agree.
Totally. My thing is, I guess when you first start it, like when we first sat down and recorded episode 1, I really didn't know how long it was going to go for. And that's not a slight to either of you guys or like us as a group, but like, you just think of like how many grand big ideas that people have that just don't materialize, whether it be they're going to start a business or they're going to start a podcast or, whatever that passion project is, that life gets in the way and whatever else happens and it just kind of fizzles out. So even over the course of the past few months during the COVID thing, when, as we had mentioned kind of amongst ourselves, like a lot of podcasts who can't record like face to face in person just aren't doing anything. Like we're still doing our best to keep up as close to a weekly cadence on this as possible. Just like the perseverance, if you want to call it that, or just the stick-to-itiveness that we've had on this through the sometimes struggle to find an interesting enough topic to speak about through all the other things to get here. To me, it is a big deal. Like this is something I'm really proud of. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
If someone asks about, oh yeah, you're on a podcast, one of the first things I'm going to say now is like, wow, we're 100 episodes deep, and that's going to get a reaction out of people. So,
it's a
congratulations.
big number.
I'm proud of us collectively for getting here. So
hell yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. Despite it being, only 4 more than like 96.
Right.
If you actually say, if you say we're over 100 episodes, that sounds more than like almost to 100 episodes, even though it's, only 4 or 5 different. But no, I think it speaks to, what it means to us that despite personal stuff, work stuff, things we have no control over, like the Ronas, we've kept going. I think it speaks to how much it means to us and how much we like producing stuff for everybody to listen to, because whether it's a huge audience or we know almost everybody, when people are asking you, hey, when does that next episode come out, you're like, oh, I can get one of those together for you. That'd be fun.
It's so good.
Yeah, even if you know them, so
it feels really good. I think it speaks to just how passionate we are about the subject too, because like the stuff we talk about on air is the stuff we'll talk about anyway, whether we had microphones or not. And you can ask our significant others how often we talk about car stuff. Like they've been subjected to a lot of it. So it just speaks to how passionate we are about everything automotive. And I think it's great that, along the way, we've made some really cool connections that have led to some other cool connections. And like the spider web is kind of growing. Like I never thought we'd be interviewing a Twitter celebrity from England. I never thought we'd be interviewing one. I never thought we'd be interviewing a NASCAR driver. I never thought we'd be able to sit and for me, as I would argue, and I think you guys would agree, by far the largest race fan of the three of us. Like, who would have thought that less than 2 years in, we'd be in the back of a full-on racing hauler transporter speaking to like top line race drivers. Like the little connections here and there that this gives us, and it's just slowly starting to spider web out, is just really cool. And hopefully very soon there's going to be more of that to come. So
yeah, and something I was really afraid of when we started, to be honest, was who's going to care about a little podcast, and more than that, like, are we just going to get laughed out of any situation? And we've had people turn us down, but the whole community has just been super nice all the time. That's the shocking thing. Yeah, Twitter can be mean because Twitter's Twitter, but like, when you actually get in touch with people and ask, the worst they'll say is like, no, I don't really have time right now, but thanks for contacting us, versus like, haha, who are you? Get out of my DMs.
Which would be fine too. Like I would
expect that. Right. Yeah. That's what I was expecting, but the fact that it's not that is nice.
The entire community except for Chris Harris.
Screw that guy. That was still like one of my favorite moments of all time. I laughed so hard at his response. I thought that was absolutely genius.
Yeah, fantastic response.
Someday I'm going to check and see if he's unblocked us, which he probably hasn't, because there's no like limit on Twitter block list. And the first thing I'm going to do is tweet him as to why he thinks owning a convertible, was it convertible or Targa Porsche?
Targa
Porsche. Objectively the best Porsche. Why he thinks that's a badge of shame. That was the whole point of my original tweet to him. You're telling on yourself. Whatever.
Anyway, Andrew, how are we celebrating, besides just reminiscing and patting ourselves on the back? How are we actually celebrating 100 episodes?
Well, for our 100th episode, we have each imagined the ultimate road trip for ourselves and our significant others. What would we do with only one flight maximum? What road trip would we take with everyone? If we could. I mean, like, no limit, right? Yeah, coronavirus is one thing, but blow the lid off of this. What's your fantasy road trip? What's the ultimate thing you would love to do with cars and the people that you like? That's it.
Yeah, we got to play travel agent.
Yeah.
Like fantasy travel agent, no budget. Like,
go nuts.
Just go nuts. Andrew, do we have any other pace laps, or do we just want to get into this? I feel like these are going to take a while to get through.
They might, but I just have one thing that I read about, and it actually really, really surprised me. Who was it? Road and Track. He tweeted out some fucking clickbait article. Like, I forget what they said about it. Like, your tail lights or your blinkers are more dangerous than you think. Like, story at 11 type shit. But then I forget who was that. IIHS, I think, like retweeted it or something and was like, said something about blinkers being super important. And we're like, yeah, okay, I know this. So I clicked on the Road and Track article. And as clickbaity as they made it sound, it actually is a really interesting fact that kind of blew my mind a little bit. So it's about the color of your rear turn signals.
Okay.
So cars with red turn signals, so that's like the Euro style or integrated, red turn signals are on average 22% more likely to be hit from behind than cars with amber indicators.
I wonder if that's here or worldwide.
That is in the US.
Because that's it's like the high mount brake light. Like when we introduced the high mount brake light in the United States, first off, for a long time, cars with it were more likely to not get hit. And then like once it became universal that there was a high mount brake light on everything, cars that had them burned out actually ended up getting recognized more often because it's like weird. They don't have a high mount brake light and not getting hit. So it's like, the standard becomes invisible after a while. So I'm curious if that's the same in Europe or if, I'm
not real sure, but they do mention the high mount brake light, even when it was introduced, was only correlated with about 8% fewer crashes. So this is more than double, almost 3 times more just with the color of your turn signals, which is bizarre. And it's not mandated.
No, and I think it's pretty clear in anecdotal fact to me. Though anecdotal fact, that's not a thing. Anecdotal evidence to me, because that's why I really, really hate blind spot indicators where they are on a lot of cars, and they're yellow. And they're
and they're amber.
Like like you come up behind somebody and their blind spot indicator comes on. You're like, oh crap, they're coming over, and like get out of the way. And it's like,
flash.
Yeah, it's just their blind spot indicator, but that's so knee jerk, deeply seated to indicate that someone is moving your direction. Is there's an amber light pointing at you that it makes total sense that not having one could be a problem.
What blew my mind even more is that that one change from red to amber is basically the same ballpark as autonomous driving, which is only in the 30s, like a 1/3% improvement. That's the difference that we're talking about. That really blew my mind. So it's like 10% between those two, between a really, really expensive, fancy computer learning, radar, computers, all this shit, or a light bulb and a piece of plastic.
Yeah, a yellow light bulb or a white light bulb with yellow plastic.
That's so bizarre to me. I think it shows obviously that, I mean, we know that autonomous technology A doesn't exist and B is not ready for anything remotely close to prime time. When those are your numbers, when 30% improvement is your number for the thing that quote unquote is the present and will be the future, it's not good enough. A bulb.
What if you have both of them like my car?
You're immune.
Am I very safe now?
You're immune.
No one will ever rear end you ever.
It's not even possible.
It was funny. I was
get really close to just veer hard left or right. Like a force field.
I was backing out of my parking space the other day and was backing up way faster than my car thought was safe, and it saw that there was a canoe behind me on the grass that I had no intention of hitting. I knew it was there, and it like slammed on the brakes and scared the absolute shit out of me. because it uses the ABS like brake force distribution servos, so it's this horrible grinding, rattling application of the brakes, and you come to a screeching halt and think you've died.
Hilarious.
So, but that's the downside of that. The good side is that I apparently am not safely and securely in my lane as often as I think I am, because I get warned about that a lot.
No, those systems are bullshit. They really tend to freak out.
No, they're just overly sensitive. If they see you heading for the line really fast, they're like, you're going to be over the line in a second, and they like preemptively set themselves off. Like when I'm setting up for a corner and I go way outside and then way inside, like towards the apex really fast, it's like, what are you doing? And
can you not turn that off?
I can, yeah. But I actually like to leave it on for commuting, because I do get distracted and I look at the dog or whatever, and it's like, hey, get back in your lane. Oh yeah, sorry, my bad. So, because it doesn't do, except for one spot, I've only found one spot where the tree shadows and stuff line up to really confuse the computer, and it's like right down the road from my house every time.
Naturally.
But it's very good. I've had lane departure stuff and things like that on rental cars, and this is much, much more accurate because it's using vision, not like sensors or anything. So it's really pretty good. Doesn't bother me most of the time, but it's a good reminder to get back to basics and stay in your lane.
Yeah, but by the way, thank you for the illustration on exactly how to not use those systems. Don't use them so you can look at a dog.
No, I'd be looking at the dog anyway.
Then don't.
Then don't bring the dog along.
Drive the car. Yeah, that's exactly it. Drive the car. Speaking of drive the car, Nick, tell them what you did.
What have you done, Nick?
I didn't do anything. The Focus
Tell them
did
what
it.
you did.
It wasn't my fault. It was the Focus's fault.
He bought a Ford.
Yeah, we went over this already.
Not on the podcast.
Yeah, we did.
What happened to the Ford?
Oh, what happened to the Ford? So the air conditioner took a shit on Sunday, 3 days ago.
The hottest day ever.
The hottest day of the year. It was 100 degrees and humid. And day before, I stood up in my friend's wedding. Congrats to Shane and Amy. And I had volunteered, as people in the wedding party kind of do, just doing little tasks to help the bride and groom out. I said, I will return the tuxes for the groomsmen. Like I'll just grab them, pick them all up day after and run them back to the store. So I had just picked up tux 2 of 6.
Buh.
And all of us, there was no warning chimes. There was no check engine light that came on, but the 2 temperature gauges only, not tachometer, not boost, not anything, just water temperature, oil temperature gauges went from like normal, kind of right in the middle, just down to 0 as I was driving. And I thought, it made that sound too, which I thought was really interesting.
Did it really?
No, I was just kidding. So, but no check engine light, no anything else. And then it just started blowing the shit out of the hot air on the AC. And I'm like, oh no, not today, any day but today. So I pulled into a parking lot at an auto parts store, like the first one I could find. Opened the hood, and there was 0 coolant in the reservoir. Like it was bone dry. But I was not leaving a trail. So where did the coolant go?
Was it being consumed?
Yeah. So I ran into the auto parts store, bought coolant, filled it up, limped it back home, switched to Claire's car to finish my task. And then yesterday got the Focus in, just picked it up today. They changed the condenser for the air conditioning. They did say that there was like an air pocket in the line that runs the coolant through. And they said, so they bled it basically like you would bleed brakes, I guess, and did a pressure check and everything was cool. Get it? Everything was cool. And then, and they also did say, like, if something like that happens, if the engine senses it's overheating, the first thing the ECU will do is shut off the air conditioner. So
yes, and probably turn on your heater core too, because it's basically a second radiator.
Right, exactly. So drove it back home, at least on the 30-minute drive home from the dealership. Everything was fine, so should be good to go. Taking it to Road America this weekend, so fired up.
Great.
So that was the story. And by the way, like I said, like we just said on the podcast like 2 weeks ago that I bought it. So this is like 2 weeks home from the dealership and this happened. I was not happy.
I can definitely imagine.
I was not happy. So, that's that story.
Great.
That's the second time I've had ACs. That's the second time I've had ACs go out in my vehicles. So I had it happen to my Trailblazer as well on one of our Indianapolis trips. So Indy 500 Memorial Day weekend is super hot.
Yeah.
Got back in the car after 4 hours on aluminum benches in 95-degree weather, only to be blowing hot air for a 5-hour trip home. So we just drove basically I-65 to 94 with the windows down the entire time, doing 80 miles an hour, trying to get some air moving. Finally got home, and while I was away for those 2 days over the weekend, the AC in my condo went out.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I remember that.
I opened the door to a 94-degree house. I was like, son of a bitch.
I mean, it's not funny, but it's kind of funny.
It's funny now looking back.
And then he texts us and says, we can't record at my house this week.
That's right. Ah, the good old days.
The good old days.
Recording at Nick's place.
Record in person, even.
Right?
Yeah, I missed that.
Never again.
But anyway, is there anything else we want to talk about, or shall we get on with the show?
I don't think so. So I saw a bunch of people I follow, a bunch of car people up in arms about some tweet someone put out about how manual transmissions are disappearing and customers never ask for them. And I was just kind of like, yes, we know. But I think
it's been around for a while. That's why I wanted to get mine in now. The
thing that really bugs me about this is how aggressively it feeds into the jalopnik fallacy, is what I call it, which is where 175% of everyone who's ever been on the website jalopnik.com says repeatedly about nice cars with manual transmissions that they don't have to buy it new, they'll buy it used, which doesn't work. Okay, that's
you
not
have to buy it new, or they don't exist used.
Exactly. But they don't really ever think about that. They just think, also, this also happens with their brown manual wagons and Audi RS wagons.
RS cars. Yeah.
RS wagons. They will buy them used, only they never do. And they don't seem to correlate buying new cars versus, for comparison's sake, I definitely put my money where my mouth is. I always said if they ever make a really fast version of the Veloster, I will buy one. And they made a fast version of the Veloster, and I bought that. And then they made a faster one, and I really want to buy that.
Yeah, I at least when I say I'm going to do something, I do it.
That's true. Tristan just did it. Nick just did it with the manual car.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hey.
Like if they ever make an XT Outback with the 260 plus horsepower at the auto show, I'm definitely going to buy one of those. And look what happened. So
So
Yep.
we're better. That's the long story short. Now, now I can't announce the episode topic after the break. Nick has to do it.
So does that mean we're taking a break right now?
I think we can start the episode topic.
No, let's take a break and then we'll start the episode topic. So we'll get right back into this after this break. Hey, we're back, folks, and we're about to get into tonight's main topic. But before we do, we'd like to remind you how to get a hold of us if you feel so inclined. We have our very own website, which Andrew has just redesigned for us. Andrew, is it live now, or will it be live in the next couple of days? Or
yeah, it's going to be live shortly. We have ourselves a tiny little, what do I want to say? Celebration makeover for episode 100. And that will involve a new website, which will be up in a couple days around the time this episode comes out, depending on how my work schedule is. And also some other new things in some of the same old locations. Like, for example, our Twitter account at Check Engine Pod might look a little different going forward.
Yes.
Or the Instagram account, also at Check Engine Pod.
Or
that
the
will look
Facebook.
different.
Yep, or the Facebook account, Check Engine Podcast. You can search it there. Those will look different because thank you to our friends at Styled Aesthetic. We'll be debuting a brand new logo. We figured it's perfect timing, 100 episodes, the next chapter of this podcast's history. Time to make it look like we kind of know what we're doing. So
time to throw a new coat of paint on it.
Not that Andrew's first swipe at a logo wasn't bad.
The first swipe was pretty bad. Now, looking back, the second one, I think I got a little closer, but it was time to put this in the hands of some actual professionals because I was already way past what I could possibly do in Photoshop.
And they delivered. They absolutely delivered for us in spades. So thanks to Styled Aesthetic. And folks, look for the new logo on all the digital stuff. By the way, the website is checkenginepodcast.com. And we have an email address there as well, inbox at checkenginepodcast.com. So look for this new look on all the socials where you can get in touch with us, or on this new website, and possibly maybe some new swag coming soon. We'll see. So anyway, be sure to like, follow, share, post, DM, reach out to us how and when you can. You can ask us questions to answer on the air. You can let us know what you like or dislike. Give us topic ideas. Remember to send in your favorite, funniest, best car story. We have had one submission so far, and it's a doozy. Remember, if we read these on our show, we will reach out to you, get some information, and send you some CEP can coolies. Send them your way. So thanks in advance. Now, to get back to the show, Andrew, we're taking ultimate road trips.
Mm-hmm. Ultimate. I guess they're not really coronavirus road trips, right? It's just if anything was possible. I mean, who doesn't want to travel right now first?
Yeah, we're all pretty cooped up.
Yeah. So if we could go anywhere, do anything for the ultimate road trip, where would we go and what would we do? I mean, I can start.
Sure. Are we teeing this up like what cars are we going to be taking first? Or do you want to go through the itinerary first, or how are we going to do this?
Well, I think it's going to vary per trip a little bit because my trip is going to start with a short road trip to Orchard Field in Illinois, also known as O'Hare.
Maybe Field?
That's what it was originally called. That's why it's ORD.
No.
Yes. The airport abbreviation is ORD.
Yeah, I know that. I thought it was...
I think it's Orchard. Doesn't matter.
That's not the point. Anyway, we're flying out of O'Hare. Continue.
And we are going to take... We're going to take a flight to Havana, Cuba.
Whoa.
And it is not illegal, by the way. It is still not illegal for Americans to go to Cuba. But there are travel restrictions. So here's what I would like to do. I would like to plan our trip, and fortunately, we actually know someone who could do this. Because what Cuba requires is that if you're going to stay in Cuba for longer than 48 hours, you have to go to an approved family. These are families that put you up in their house. They are licensed, so they can, set up tours for you and take you around the island, stuff like that. But what I would love to do more than anything else, go back to Cuba because it's the most incredible place in the known world. But one thing that I think we need to correct as a podcast, as a group, is the impression about Cuba in America. Because whenever you go to Cuba, the first thing anyone here says is, oh, all those old American cars. Yes, that is true. But there are so many Ladas and Chinese cars and Russian vehicles and Cold War relics. And it's this unbelievable mix of vehicles that have not been seen by many people in America, and they aren't even known about. And I think we have a car podcast. We would be interested in cars, and I know that they have even rental car places. So my goal would be for us to go to Havana, stay with the family in their, what I'm sure would be lovely home, get them to introduce us to some of these independent tour guides who do use old American cars to show them around the island, have a discussion with them about why they only use the old American cars, because it's more than likely that this family, whoever it is that we stay with, is going to own a Chinese vehicle or an old Russian car. Mm-hmm. And let's see if we can't suss out a little bit or help use these cars to help interpret the unbelievable history of this island, because it really is a place that's so untouched by almost every major influence in the world, and yet has found a way to modernize itself with technology, although it's, strictly blacklisted from most of the major producers that aren't China. It's just an incredible, incredible place. That would be the stuff in Havana. And then we can also, food, local custom, music. The city is fucking gorgeous. Everything about it is incredible. And one thing that I would love to do from that point is hire some cars, because you actually can rent vehicles there. They're probably Chinese, standard cars. But I want to take a road trip down the coast.
Okay.
And see what there is to see. There are several different Cuban road trips that you can opt for. I would assume that, the Bureau of Tourism actually has itineraries and stuff like this, because they'll help you pick out places to stay, not only in Havana, but in the other major cities. And there are resort towns and this and that kind of scattered around the island. But I'm curious about the infrastructure, because, to either side of Havana, what I've seen, it's very robust. But I wonder what it looks like when you get deeper into the island and start going between these cities. I want to see it. I want to record it. I don't know what we'd need, if we need cameras or we just use our phones or whatever it would take. I would want to make on this trip a genuine little documentary that we could release to show the actuality of Cuba, not old American cars, but Russian cars and Soviet architecture and the newest Chinese buses and all this stuff. I mean, it's the whole gamut of a society that's had to cobble its way into the modern era as best it could. It's so incredible. And I really, really wish we could do this.
That would be a really interesting trip. I would just love to speak to some of the mechanics down there, because keeping some of these cars, as old as they are, running. I mean, some of these, like, you'll see a 57 Chevy with a 2 or 3 liter diesel in it. Like, they're doing motor swaps. Their mechanical skills down there are incredible. And I would love to just chat with them, because, like, when it gets to that point, it's almost like an art. Like, you have to be so creative to think of ways to problem solve to keep these vehicles on the road. I would just love to pick their brains.
Yeah, exactly. Like Andrew, when you were saying, like, this is a country that's managed to not only keep itself together, but, modernize itself. I think that's going to apply to the old American cars. I mean, and we kind of discussed it in our Car of the People one, like, there's a difference between good and reliable,
Yes.
like, and easily fixable. So I'd want to see how they handle, a lot of the old Soviet era stuff, whether that's all still running and how, and, that kind of thing too. So.
Yeah. And another big thing for me, cause I didn't get a chance to do this when I was there. There are a lot of Cuban museums, and they're all within, visitor striking distance, right? They're in their main centers of Havana. I didn't get to see any of them, but I would love to see their history museum and their war museum and their natural history museum. And they have all of these museums like you would expect in any major European city, right? And they have a lot of the buildings, very similar architecture, Spanish influenced, and they're just gorgeous buildings. I gotta know what's in there. Do they have a transportation museum? Do they have, they may, right? This is all stuff that I want to experience, and I can't think of a better group. And at the end, if we have some content for the podcast, so much the better.
That sounds fantastic.
As a spoiler alert for mine, mine was also like, if we get some good podcast content. Yeah, cod paste. Ugh. If we get some good podcast content, superb. But this was just a celebrating our 100th episode. We're going to take some time off, go take a family vacation. And, if we can get you some content, guys, great. But, we want to travel a little bit. So.
Well, and Andrew, you got anything else, or Tristan, you just want to dive into yours?
I think that's pretty much it. I have such a need to get back to Cuba. And I think it's just I feel like it's such a disservice to the people of Cuba. And this was something that really caught my attention when I was there. Just a short story, kind of why I would want to go back. That right at the port of Havana, they have the wreckage from the plane, an American plane they shot down. And there was an American guy. We were on these tour buses. This American guy got so offended that they would dare to show this wreckage in their country. And I was like, what the fuck could you possibly be thinking, guy? What? This happened. Like, what are you talking about? And
yeah, but we can't erase history, guys. We can't destroy monuments. That's probably the same one of those guys.
Well, yeah, right. And there's so much about Cuba that is pushed to the side in order to, get American tourists interested, right? Because if you feature a Soviet tower block in your ads for your country, Americans, we visually recognize that, right? We know from the Cold War what that looks like. And it just stands out. So you never see anything like that in any of these advertisements, but such a disservice to them, because those cars, those buildings, that architecture, that history is part of what makes Cuba Cuba, and their national pride is so incredible that it has to be respected, in my view. And I would love to be a person to be able to tell a part of that story.
So we've talked a lot about like what you missed when you were there, or what you might have found out about afterwards, or what have you. Mm-hmm. Is there anything on your list, having been there before, that we absolutely would need to see? You would do again because it was so good. We need to go.
The National Cemetery.
Okay.
Which sounds a little bizarre, but
no, I get it.
It's not that I've been to every major city in Europe, right? But I've spent my time in cathedrals, Notre Dame, and seen these marble carvings in the Louvre, and there was nothing like the carving and the gravestones and the monuments in that cemetery, simply because, like everything else on the island, this is something that continually gets reinforced in everything you see, hear, do, smell. everything that you see in Cuba is something very like what you've seen before in a lot of ways, right? You've smelled coffee beans before. You've had rum before. You've seen a carven gravestone before. So you recognize what it is in your brain, but you don't recognize the full impact of what you're seeing until you really look at it, because Cuba's been so isolated throughout its modern history that everything there is an authentic article. The coffee is different. The rum is different. The pavers are different. The street signs are different. The people are different. The unbelievable cultural diversity represented by just the people who are from Cuba is unreal, because it's the whole spectrum, right? They've had the Eastern European influence. They've had Latin American influence. They've had Caribbean influence. And it's not something you're used to seeing, everything being so authentic to its own land, right? Because in America, everything we have here is inspired in some way by something in Europe.
Right.
But there, it's the same thing, but it's not, because they've had time to sort of percolate their own culture. So there's this firefighters monument in the Cuban National Cemetery that's so unbelievably breathtakingly beautiful. And it's carved out of the softest, most beautiful, rich marble. You can touch it and it feels almost like cloth. It's so incredible. I mean, I have to go back and see that. I just have to go back and experience it again. I didn't get enough time, and I would love to be able to bring that to you guys and to anyone else who would listen.
You're an awfully good salesman.
Oh, thank you. It's completely genuine. I loved every second of what I experienced there. It's such a rare thing.
How long were you there?
The maximum allowable time, 48 hours.
Oh, because it was a cruise, right? So the rest of the time was spent on the boat.
Well, yeah, and also that was still the time limit, because right after the 48 hours, you have to go to a family.
Right. Yeah, it is I mean, if it's anything like we did the Caribbean cruise, Claire and I with some family earlier this year, Western Caribbean, and we went around Cuba. We saw it from the boat as we were passing by. But if it's anything close to the islands we stopped at, I mean, I can't wait to go back down there. So I would definitely be down for a trip.
Yeah. And if we get to, spend a day in a Chinese compact car, so much the better, right?
Yeah,
certainly
awesome.
for content.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
For content.
How many nicks can we cram in a Chinese compact car?
For sure.
Yeah, I want that experience too. So that would be my dream if we could go anywhere. And you know what? I don't think that's going to change after quarantine. I think that's going to be the number one trip I'm going to want to make for a while.
Let's figure out a way to make it happen. Shit.
God, I wish.
It'd be great. Right. Tristan, you were kind of doing spoiler alerts earlier. Do you want to jump into yours?
Yeah, sure. I can go next. It's a little bit of kind of similar to you, Andrew. It's a trip I've really wanted to take for a long time. It's one of my number one trips after this is all over, if it's all over, if any of us make it. But in contrast, it is absolutely somewhere I have never been. And I'm very interested in having been there, but I have not been there. This is based on the idea of the, continental Europe Grand Tour.
I knew it.
Based on, I'll get there later. So this is based on that idea where the young and attractive and those with good taste would travel to the continent and motor around and experience everything that it had to offer. We're still going to go to the continent. However, it's not the continental breakfast continent. It's not continental Europe. It's a continent and a country. It's the upside down. It's down under. It's Australia.
Wow. Okay.
I knew we couldn't resist it.
So Australian culture, Australian cars, things of that nature are things that we on this podcast have spoken about fairly often. And I think that it would be high on our hit list to go experience those things and see them up close and drive some of them if we got the chance, that kind of thing. But as I mentioned, earlier, content is oddly to me secondary because I really just want to go somewhere. The upside to it being a car podcast is that it is absolutely, once we get there, a road trip. So there is a direct flight from Chicago into some weird part of Australia. It's not the one you would assume.
It's not Sydney.
No, it's not even like the capital or anything. It's not Canberra. It's like it's Brisbane. That's where it is. Yes. I think literally because it's the closest. So, like, I don't know if they would put enough gas to make it to Sydney. I don't know, into the plane. But they say, okay, let's get here. Oh, that's good enough. So that is the flight is Chicago to Brisbane, Australia. And Australia is full of simply fantastic drives. Being a whole continent and a country, which even we are not, they have everything that you could ever want from a driving road, which is very cool, in my opinion. They have coastal drives, they have mountain drives, they have rumbling through the outback, what have you. So, although we definitely want to experience some of these things, like, yes, Nick, I would love to find a way to rent, especially you and I, because we seem to obsess on this vehicle, a Holden Maloo.
Yes.
I would love to do that. The basis of my trip in my head was something that we had discussed back in our land yachts episode. What makes a land yacht now, and we went everywhere from kind of the origination of them as the big luxurious grand touring cars of Europe to the big American sedans, and the evolution of that ended up being the luxury SUV.
Yes.
And I think there's very little else so strongly associated with Australia as the four-wheel drive vehicle. So that would be our kind of primary vehicle, although we would be there totally all for it to soak up as much culture as possible. Being a relatively large country, there are also numerous racetracks to rent, cool track day tools, that kind of thing. That's all built into the itinerary to soak up as much of that as possible. However, in my mind, I had us driving your choice. The Lexus Land Cruiser equivalent, Range Rover, whatever you'd like. I want to make that choice personal to you guys. I'd probably be driving a Range Rover. But I'll let you guys choose your own, because mainly for its flexibility. Much like a lot of these vehicles, but not all, has a air suspension, so it's rooly on road and also can pound around on the sand and things like that. Probably the most well-known scenic drive in Australia, and one that definitely has to be on my list, is the Great Ocean Road. This partially came to mind because, yes, Andrew, I couldn't resist it anyway. It's also a virtual fitness challenge Jessica and I are doing right now, is actually walking, quote unquote, this road. Obviously we can't go there, but they've got actually really great Google Earth, Google Street View imagery along the way. It's really cool. So that's top of the list. It's very famous. And it runs 151 miles along the coast of Victoria. And it was actually built as a war memorial and holds the record for the world's largest war memorial. It was built by returning World War I soldiers, in memory of those that didn't come home.
Wow.
So, world's largest war memorial, beautiful road, all sorts of hidden beaches, little like sandstone arches, in Forza Horizon, Andrew, when you're in Australia, when you're driving along the beach near the 12 Apostles, that's right below the actual Great Ocean Road.
Gosh.
That kind of thing. So beautiful scenery, great road, all sorts of that kind of thing. And then there's Australia has everything from that, sun, sand, the beach, all the way to something I didn't even know existed until I started researching this trip, the Australian Alps.
I'm sorry?
I couldn't think of another name?
No.
Yeah, they already have the Austrian Alps. Why do they need the Australian Alps?
Oh, because everybody has their own. So there's Austrian, Swiss, German,
French,
Italian, Australian, and there are apparently some in New Zealand also.
Fantastic.
So, but you get everything from, sun and sand for us from a northern climate. I'm sure that people who are used to warmer weather might not like it as much in the winter down there. But the beaches are open to skiing in the mountains, all in one thing. And it's all actually pretty much down in the lower right quadrant of the country. So, it's not too far of a drive to get our tour in. So being a whole continent, the Grand Tour is a bit lofty of a goal. We said kind of no holds, no costs barred, but that would only be if no cost meant we could be away from our life and our jobs for probably 3 or 4 months.
Hey, go.
Right. So if that's the case, there's all sorts of things to be seen in Australia. High on my list, but again, it's like coming to the United States and saying, I want to experience all the United States, including Alaska. Like, okay, but just getting there is going to soak up a lot of your time. Flying into New York and saying, Alaska is high on my list. The far northwest corner of Australia is apparently very beautiful. It has a name with an actual definite article and everything. It's called the Kimberley.
Australians.
Yeah. Because they throw the in front of everything. Or big or great.
Yep.
Or port.
Port.
Yeah, there's a lot of those.
Huh.
And new, because really most of their names are either Aboriginal names or new versions of names in England.
Right.
But yeah, so the Great Ocean Road, the relatively famous 75-mile beach, which is definitely not 75 miles long, but famous shipwrecks to see. One of the most attractive four-wheel drive experiences in Australia. Beautiful sand beaches to drive on, and really, it just seems like a great place to soak up everything from cool mountain driving, some racetrack experience, four-wheel drive driving, and sun and sand, skiing, all in one country, and that's very, very high on my list for myself, and I really do think that it'll be something that we would all enjoy, because I think we'd find something for everybody.
Definitely.
Well, Australia is definitely a bucket list place. Australia and New Zealand, actually.
Just beware of drop bears.
What's that? No. What? How does that kill you?
No, those are fake. Those are not real. That's a joke.
I didn't get it.
Yeah. That sounds perfectly legitimate.
Yeah, for Australia, I wouldn't put it past them.
Andrew, I will find you the Penny Arcade comics about when they first went to PAX Australia and how they were preparing for drop bears.
I don't remember that.
It's not just a penny arcade joke, everybody. If an Australian local tells you here you need to buy this special hat to protect yourself from the drop bears and don't forget to pee on it, they're lying to you. So it's a bit of a local prank. They're like vicious koala bears.
But isn't that real? Because aren't koala bears actually kind of like
koala bears are assholes?
Yeah. They're unpleasant, but they're not gonna actually predate you.
Although
they also they're ornery, but they're also really, really slow because they're high.
Well, that's good.
And they all have chlamydia. That's not a joke either. I
did know that, actually. Anyways, that all sounds great to me. I'm ready to do it.
Yeah. Like I said, podcast or not, Australia is definitely, it's, before I die, I will get there at some point.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Nick?
All right. I am up. I'll bring us home here. So I took the phrase ultimate road trip a little more to heart, I think, because I've got a doozy of a trip. Like in my head, this is going to take probably a month. Okay. Just saying. I've got 5 legs of the trip. I've got them all split up here, 5 legs. The Google Maps that I mapped out is
wow, detail.
It's coming, guys. I went all in on this. Is 47 hours of drive time.
Wow.
But like I said, 2 days. I don't know what's going to take a month.
Like I said, we're splitting it up because there's stuff to see and do.
I know. I'm kidding.
4,000 kilometers, 4,002 to be exact. And the way I started this was, I'm like, okay, so this is a driving podcast, or it's a car podcast. This is a road trip. I want to include some of the best driving roads or passes that I possibly can. And where can we get a lot of them in relatively close distance? Like, because obviously
the Alps.
Well, because obviously you can't be like, oh, I'm going to do, the California coast and then someplace in Germany. Like, that's not going to work. So obviously Europe, Tristan has it right, was where we could bring a few of these in. So as I mentioned, 47 hours, 4,000 kilometers, a bunch of awesome, check the box touristy stops, but most importantly, 4 of the best driving roads to be found on planet Earth, depending on which list you look at or article you read. And also what I like about this is while we're going to go through some places that get a lot of press, we're going to go through some places that, relatively speaking, are off the beaten path, that don't get a lot of publication, but from as I was looking it up, was absolutely gorgeous. So
I like that.
Well, actually, you know what? Yeah, we'll start with the flight. So we're going to leave O'Hare and we are going to fly to Istanbul.
Ooh, he's doing the thing. He's doing the thing from the TV.
We're flying to Istanbul. And there we will get our cars. And you said money was no object, Andrew. I figured we just have them bought and shipped and delivered.
Fair.
And I was thinking of which car for each couple. And it would be super easy to be like, okay, one person gets the McLaren and another one person gets the P1, one person gets the 918, one person gets the Ferrari. But this is a road trip. Like these cars need to be a little more practical because there's going to be some luggage involved. Mm-hmm. Needs to be a little more comfortable. We can't be, stopping every 40 minutes for gas. We've got, so I put a little more thought into the cars than that. And I'm like, okay, so Andrew, it would have been easy just to say, you get a Hyundai Veloster N.
They don't sell those there.
They don't sell those there. And also, I truly believe that at some point in time, you're actually going to get one. So I wanted to keep this to cars that we can't get. And because you really, just because of the Veloster and the time spent with you in this podcast, you have, Tristan with his GTI started this, but you've really kind of driven home the love of the hatchback. So I'm going to, for you and Meg, you will get a Renault Megane RS.
Perfect. I thank you for that.
So you get a hatchback. Tristan, no brainer here. You love the wagon so much. You and Jessica will be driving an RS6 Avant.
Ooh, very much. Thank you.
And I did not go with the C7 Corvette for me and Claire.
Shocker.
It is a shocker, because that was my first thought. But I chose for me and Claire the Aston Martin Rapide AMR.
Wow.
4-door saloon, as you call it, big trunk. It comes with a Le Mans luggage set for all of our stuff. But
okay, explain that. What is a Le Mans luggage set?
It's a good question.
You can look it up. It's a leather bound, it's like a group of 4 bags, different varying sizes and depths, leather with a big number 59 on them, which was the year Aston Martin won their first and I believe only overall victory at Le Mans.
Ah, of course.
So, but it can carry the luggage. It's a 4-door saloon, but it's also got a 595 horsepower V12 and is capable of 200 miles an hour. So it'll be fun as well. So we pick up those cars in Istanbul. And for this first leg of the trip, we are going to drive northwest out of Istanbul along the coast of the Sea of Marmara, which is like the farthest easternmost bay of the Mediterranean Sea that basically just butts up to Istanbul. That is where Istanbul sits.
Butts up to.
Yeah. So from there, from the Sea of Marmara, we cut across Turkey towards the other coast to a town of Krikoy. And then we are going to run up the western coast or the western shores of the Black Sea into just a phenomenal coastal drive into Bulgaria, where we will pass through a town called Burgas, which seems like to me like it's Madison on steroids. And what I mean by that is
weird.
Madison is just a narrow strip, like an isthmus between 2 lakes.
Yes.
Burgas has kind of got the same thing, but on one side is 3 lakes, and on the other side is the Black Sea. So, very picturesque through there. And then we make our way up to Varna, Bulgaria, which is right on the coast as well. It is actually one of Europe's top seaside resort towns, 330,000 people population. So it's actually a pretty hopping city.
Yeah.
And we will end with a trip from Varna. So we'll hang out in Varna for a little bit, experience sights, those types of things, and then head north and end leg 1 in Bucharest, Romania.
Sorry, I'm watching a show called Comrade Detective, which is set in Romania. It made me laugh immediately.
Okay.
Funny if you want to check that out. Not an endorsement, just couldn't help myself from laughing and had to explain myself.
Yeah, so that's fine. Romania doesn't get a ton of pub except for maybe on this show that Tristan's watching. But Bucharest is known as a strikingly beautiful city. And Romania is also home of the first driving road that I found.
Mm-hmm.
So leg 2, when we leave Bucharest, we head to a town called Curtea de Argeș, which is in the heart of what is known as Transylvania. So central Romania, this is where the Dracula stories come from, and the towns around here play into that. If leaving Curtea de Argeș, going due north, there is a 56-mile road called the Trans-Făgărașan Highway.
Yep.
Through the Fargus mountain range.
As seen on TV. I don't just know that, the viewer.
Right.
Listeners, I don't just be knowing that. It was a Top Gear episode.
Top Gear episode. So, folks, we'll post pictures of these so you can get a visual, but crazy switchbacks through mountains and valleys. It runs along the shore of a really large lake. Just one of the most picturesque places you're ever going to see. And we end up in a town called Sibiu, which is another very underrated top 10 tourist stop in all of Europe. It's called the Town with Eyes.
Uh-oh.
Oh, gross.
Because of the way that there's something in the construction of the houses where the windows sit towards the roof that make it look like the town has eyes, a bunch of eyes. And again, like I said, heart of Transylvania, the whole Dracula folklore. So this town plays up all of that. From there, we head to our next stop or overnight, which would be a pretty good drive to Budapest, Hungary. So again, Budapest, gorgeous town, tons of culture, so much to see and do there. From there, we're going to head across the Hungarian countryside towards Vienna, another just fantastic spot. We're going to pass through the Neusiedlersee National Park.
Yes,
I believe is how you pronounce it. That one. And after Vienna, we're going to make our next stop into Munich.
Yeah, I love that city.
So Tristan has been there. He can show us around. He's a tour guide there. One of those big check off the box German cities. It's got a lot of car culture there. We shit on them a lot, but it is the headquarters of BMW. So I'm sure there's museums or factory tours or something that we can do there.
Yes, there is.
With BMW.
Car companies too. It doesn't have to just be BMW.
Yeah, there's other ones too. Volkswagen has some stuff there also.
Yeah, and right down there, you're near a lot of stuff. Even if it's not in Munich, you're a short drive from basically all the major German car makers.
Yeah. So after we hang out in Munich, we head southwest towards the Obersee Bodensee, I think. Is it pronounced, Tristan, on the southwestern edge of Germany? Bodensee?
Yes.
So the town of Lindau on one side, and then we follow the road basically around the contour of the lake to Konstanz on the other side, which leads us, we're very close at that point. We would drive in and through and stop in Zurich, Switzerland.
Another very nice town. Didn't spend as much time there. It's quite nice.
These are all, I've never been to any of these places, but you hear great things about all of them. I tried to map this out as best I could. Stops that would be interesting. And that brings us to our next two driving roads for this trip. The first one in the Swiss Alps is the Furka Pass, 8,000 feet up. Again, huge switchbacks, very picturesque. And selfishly, for me, this is going to be awesome because this is where one of the car chase scenes in the Bond film Goldfinger was shot. So I would be in an Aston Martin driving the same roads that James Bond drove in his Aston Martin. Of course, Andrew, your favorite, it's the DB5.
Terrible car. It's not my fault that it's a terrible car. Everyone always laughs, but it's not my fault. By the way, I'm looking up pictures of the Renault Megane RS this whole time.
Yeah, you can drool. It's okay.
I love this car. It makes me feel hot.
I think
it makes you feel hot.
Yes, in my
loins
areas and nipples.
Warm erogenous zones.
This car is so great. Anyways, sorry. Enough about my nipples.
So I get to, in my Aston Martin, I get to play James Bond and do my own little mini car chase down through the Furka Pass. Pretend like I'm in Goldfinger.
And we will be chasing you as you have by far the fastest car.
Yes. Absolutely. But actually, one side note on the cars, I think I chose cars that if at some point along this trip, even if it's just between fuel stop to fuel stop, if we wanted to switch and drive one another's cars, everybody, like, there wouldn't be one where you'd be like, nah, I'm good. Like, I would want to drive Andrew's for a bit and Tristan's, and I think you guys would want to switch to just for a little bit. But anyway, from the Furka Pass in Switzerland, we head into northern Italy, directly into the Stelvio Pass.
I have heard of that, but I don't know why. Is that like famous for some reason?
I believe that was another one on Top Gear, I want to say.
Oh, yes. And that same episode.
Was it the same episode as the one in Romania?
Yep.
Okay. I didn't know it was the same episode. I believe I saw them both on there, though. Again, I'm not going to do it justice speaking about it. Just wait for the images to look it up yourself, or wait for us to post them on our socials. Northern Italy, Stelvio Pass. This is higher up than the Furka Pass. It's 9,000 feet of elevation.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Just crazy switchback roads, breathtaking scenery. And then we'll spend the evening and overnight in Verona, Italy. And this final leg of the trip is just all through Italy, because Italy is just so picturesque. So we're going to go down through wine country. From Verona, we're going to go through Bologna and Florence. We're going to head down into Rome. And then the final driving road, which is actually like a World Heritage Site, as I looked it up, is the Amalfi Drive, is just south of Naples. Specifically, UNESCO Heritage Site. So just south of Naples, specifically between the towns of Salerno and Positano. It's just a fantastic coastal drive. And just a perfect way to end the trip. And then after 4 weeks and 4,000 miles and 48 hours of ultimate road tripping, we can fly back to O'Hare from Naples. So
nice. Perfect.
So it works out quite nice. That is my ultimate road trip. 3 awesome cars, 3 great groups of friends, 4 awesome driving roads. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, at least main huge tourist cities that we can check off our list. And especially with the driving roads we're going through, even the ones that aren't like marked, I feel like the coast of the Black Sea is going to be really, really cool. The Bodensee in Germany from Lindau to Constance would be an absolutely gorgeous drive. I picture that being something like we were driving past when Tristan got us lost by accident in Watkins Glen.
No, I didn't get you lost. I took you to see the lake.
Yeah. So definitely so awesome. The idea is a vacation, but we are a car podcast. So mounting GoPros on dashes, anything like that to document it and give some content back to the listeners would be great too. So
yeah, that sounds great. I especially like that you took the time to pick out cars individually for each of us, and I think you nailed it. I mean, obviously mine doesn't necessarily lend to that because we'll just get whatever Chinese car happens to be there. But yeah, I think you did really well.
Yeah, and mine was, I don't know what your guys' SUV preferences are, but it's Australia. You're going to need one. There will be Outback. I'll let you choose your own. No, spared no expense.
Spared no expense.
Well, when I heard, or when I read actually through our message thread that Andrew with this idea, it was really no holds bar. Yeah. Like, okay, if you say so.
I'm just thinking Land Cruiser definitely a Land Cruiser for Australia, right? Do they make that there?
You have to.
It's Toyota.
Well, I know, but do they sell that in Australia?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they might. I know they sell the Lexus version,
Oh yeah, whatever the heck that is.
Yeah. Yep.
That'd probably be my pick.
Yeah, I'm looking right now.
Remember, Nick, no GMCs. We discussed this.
That's true. Nothing to really do with anything other than I just thought of that because I was stuck on Land Rovers because you said that. But I mean, I've always wanted to experience a Land Cruiser.
Yeah, it's been, and much like Nick's, I would definitely envision, everybody brings in everything every day from the hotel, and if we want to switch cars, that's fine, But yeah, and I wasn't going to subject you guys to any actual overlanding or anything like that. I would want to.
I was going to say that, if you mention going out in the outback and overlanding, Andrew won't go.
Right, and there will be no staying out in the outback.
Really, now that is completely unfair. I would drive half the way with you, and then I would turn around and stay in the hotel.
So there is one that's kind of interesting in that regard for mine, which is it's got a funny name. It's like the null arbor plain, which literally means no trees in Latin.
Well, yeah.
It's Australia's longest, flattest, and straightest road. Road trippers must be prepared with extra petrol, food, and water in case they break down.
How long is it? Man.
It doesn't say. It crosses an area that's 200,000 square kilometers.
Damn.
Huh.
So I think that would be something to see. Again, do I have to do the whole thing? Maybe not.
Yeah, maybe
I agree
not.
with that.
Maybe not on that.
But I definitely do want to see it. Maybe I would even go with the Andrew part of the way.
See if it really is exactly that flat over the next not hill, but
right. And for yours, Nick, there's 3 things on my list above going back to Europe, but it's still there. Especially Germany. Man, I miss Germany.
For a second, I thought, Tristan, you might do a European road trip that included Ireland.
Yeah, I almost included Tasmania on this one, which you can get to by car ferry. So
that would be cool.
And then they also have a circle road. So all options there. Any flavorizers, Nick, that you were thinking of throwing in but maybe didn't?
Any flavorizers? What do you mean?
I was also thinking maybe we could, do Tasmania, or you have a very nicely set out route. Did you have anything else that was didn't make the cut, or if I had more time we'd do this or whatever?
Just because it's so far away, there was some really good driving roads that were documented in Norway. So I'm like, how can I somehow include Norway into this? But
that'd be tricky to get to.
Yeah, probably not in the cards. And just as big as that country is, I mapped it out, the 2 roads they were talking about, and just those 2 were 17 hours apart in one country.
Holy shit.
Wow. So one is way up in the Arctic Circle, and the other one's way down near the southern tip. So that would just be a trip in and of itself. So that was something I was interested in, but I couldn't get it. Or for me as a race fan, flying into, this is totally a stolen idea. I think it was the Everyday Driver podcast actually did this, and they just called it their pilgrimage. They flew into Belgium and did some laps at a track day at Spa. And then they drove from Spa. It's only an hour and a half or 2 hours to the Nürburgring. And then they did 2 days of track days at the Nürburgring. So as a car and racing guy, I think that would be a really cool trip.
That would be fun.
That would be more than a really cool trip. That would be a fucking awesome trip. And that's way more realistic than what I just spent 20 minutes blabbing on about. So
I mean, maybe. I did not consider any other options. I knew exactly what I wanted.
Nothing wrong with that.
And now I feel kind of bad just because, like, it's a road trip, but the focus would be more on the cars as much as on the roads. I mean, I would like to see the coastal roads and see the other towns in Cuba, but there's so much there that I didn't get to see, and such a focus on things that I'm interested in, like the cars and their history, that I just knew that that's what I want to do the whole time.
Well, I think. Yeah. Go ahead, Tristan. Sorry.
I was saying, mine, I think it's all very much flavors of us. I mean, I think as much as we're all car people, I think Nick is the, most raw driving obsessed. Yeah. I think Andrew, Andrew, the culture and food expert, and Tristan with the, how many miles can I drive across this entire continent to see a special kind of bird or possibly a kangaroo? It's mine would basically turn into a nature trip eventually. So,
what was that? A flying bear or whatever we're looking out for?
Drop bear.
Drop bear.
Well, hey, as long as we're driving there, I'll go wherever you want to go.
Exactly, and that was my goal, was definitely make it a road trip. Don't just like sideline us into a travel podcast. But the exact cars don't matter as much on mine. So,
yeah, awesome.
No, I think that's why this podcast works, is because we have three people with three very different tastes. And Andrew, I don't think you need to feel. I wouldn't feel bad at all, because anytime you talk about something with Cuba, like, it's important to highlight that stuff, just because there's so little that the general public here actually does know about it,
Yeah, I think it's such a bummer that, it's good that it gets any representation right after the whole Cold War thing and, almost dying of missiles. But it's such a shame that, Americans can't look at Cuba in any way but through the lens of the American experience of the Cold War,
Yes, that's the experience we have, and as long as travel restrictions are what they are, it's going to be hard to go and experience that.
That's all we're going to have.
That's why I want to do it, because
it's
hard. It's the same reason I want to do things we've discussed in other podcasts that were not my ultimate road trip, but, like we talked about, driving all the way to the very tippy top of Alaska, or, working our way into Cuba, or, that
the
kind
North
of thing.
American figure eight. I was thinking you were going to present that, Tristan.
Yeah. Is it difficult? Is it interesting? Does it bring value? I want to do it. So.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think we all brought some good things to the table here. Is it? You got anything else for anybody, or should we wrap up episode 100?
Yeah, I think we can wrap up 100 episodes.
It's got a nice ring to it. It really does.
Digits, damn.
Yeah. Just side note, folks. Depending on where you're streaming, it might say 103, but we had a couple of short 9 or 10 minute mini episodes. We had something on positive mental health. We had something on the tragedy in Christchurch, New Zealand, about a year or so ago. So like ones like that, we're not counting. So we're not that dumb. We can count to 100. There's just a few of them that we don't count as real
100. We said on episode 103. He's so dumb.
See, you don't want to invite that, because it might actually be episode 101 or 99, and we miscounted or double counted. So, I mean, you can't invite the scrutiny.
Well, I just did, so we'll see what happens.
Too late.
Too late. It happened. Nobody listens to us anyway. What are we talking about? So yeah, folks, let's get out of here. I don't know if you guys want to do shout outs this time. I think it's kind of obvious when you hit like a milestone episode. It's just all the people who are here on the ground floor friends, families, significant others who are supporting this crazy side project that we have. Anything you guys have to add?
I was going to say shout out to us.
Shout out to us.
Insert
We did
Oscar speech template here.
Exactly.
Yeah, shout out to us. Tristan, anything?
Yeah, the those that supported us, those that put up with us again, those that enjoy our content, us again, and those who don't enjoy our content because you're still listening.
Yeah, they're equally as important, frankly.
Yeah, for sure. Again, also shout out to other folks out there who have helped us out along the way, like Styled Aesthetic. They just designed the logo that we'll be debuting. They've been selling our can coolies at races. We're working out with them on some other things. Their founder, Steve, was nice enough to talk with us on one of these episodes.
Oh, that was such a good interview.
That was such a great interview with Steve. Veloce Indoor Speedway. Remember those guys? Like, they hosted us when we got to interview future NASCAR champion Josh Bilicki. So thanks to them. Who am I missing? Our friend Nick Orth, who did and continues to do a phenomenal job designing our iRacing liveries for all you sim racers out there. Arnie, theme song. Theme song.
Killing the theme song game. Artisan Low for showing up on here.
Our dads for giving us our only top 10 episode.
True.
Obviously, again, get well soon, Catherine Legg, Catherine and Bia and Jackie from Heinricher Racing.
Mm-hmm. All of
them. The folks at Murillo Racing, we haven't gotten them in for an interview yet, but they're always so kind to us. They were the first team to let us, quote unquote, sponsor them and get a CEP sticker on their car. So thanks to those guys, everybody, man. It's just been thanks to my co-host, thanks to Andrew for bringing the idea and not letting us just blow it off, like keep convincing us that this is a good idea, because it was.
Thank you.
Yeah. And as always, like we say every time, thanks to you listeners for your support. We love hearing from you. We love recording this for you. We cannot wait to speak to you again. Until then, take care. Here's to the next 100.